Introducing you to our first speaker. Her name is Julie Reisler, and she's going to be talking about the power of self-care in recovery, and also discovering your Youest you in the process. So we got a short little video that will introduce Julie, and then we'll get right into it.
From News Channel 8, this is Good Morning Washington.
This is WBAL TV 11 News.
This Valentine's Day, give yourself a gift, love yourself, get a PhD in you. And the author of the book, Julie Reisler, is here.
Author and motivational speaker Julie Reisler is here with a plan to embrace the day, no matter your relationship status. And it all begins with a little self-love.
It is often the area we don't focus on but is most needed is really tuning into ourselves. What stories are we believing? What limited thoughts are we living as though they're true? And really, that's not who we are.
We often as human beings look at what we do wrong and where our weaknesses are, and we tend to focus on that. There's a reason for that. It's called the negative bias. All of us on the planet have sacred gifts, skills, talents, and passions, and that we're meant to use them. Oftentimes we forget, we give love to everybody else. If you're like me, I have children, giving love to my kids and to everyone else on the planet.
This is such a positive message, and I think especially for young girls too, because there is no greater negative voice in their head than their own.
Everything that I'm about starts with getting still and getting quiet and really tapping into who I believe I came to this planet to be. So I'm a big fan of really giving to yourself what you're looking for first. And so sometimes others give it to us, sometimes they don't. Who is the Youest you? You have the power to make meaning of words. And I'd invite you to ask this of yourself. Where am I letting words get in the way of me living my most extraordinary life?
You are a masterpiece.
Right?
That's great.
Right? Like,
that's awesome.
Want to see that. Well, we say things to ourselves all the time. We have 70,000 thoughts a day.
Yeah.
Many of those are not very kind.
No.
And what we know is that what we're saying to ourselves, those words, they make a difference. They really impact how we feel.
If you're feeling a lack of energy, sometimes getting connected to something you feel purposeful, that feels meaningful, that can shift your energy. That can get you from crisis mode to not crisis mode. I realized that to be my Youest you, my meest me, that meant stepping into a place where I could honor and nourish my whole self and really get what I'm here for. And I believe we all have a sacred purpose. There's something like 1 in 14 trillion chances of being born. If you had $1 million racehorse, if this was like a prize horse that you wanted to make money, you would care for that horse with pristine care. What if you could be that $1 million racehorse?
Okay. So I just need to find Julie here. There you are. Okay. So we got, can you guys see Julie? I think that's it, right? You see the two of us on screen, Julie?
Hi, everybody. I see you and I see everybody, but I think because I don't like to put myself, I see, yes, let me put on speaker. Yes, 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 I'm good. Yeah, I see it now.
Okay, somehow I pinned you twice. Just 1 second.
As long as people can hear. I think you're good now. I think you got it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think that's it. I know. Add pin. For some reason, I'm seeing two of me and one of you.
It's all good. We roll with it. I think when I speak and you speak, it's going back. Yeah, I think we're good.
We got it. Okay. Okay. So, welcome, Julie. So just as a little bit of an intro, so Julie is a master life design coach and a best-selling author. She's got a podcast host and the founder of the Life Design Coaching Academy and the School of Sacredology. Julie is all about helping big-hearted high achievers to tune into their intuitive superpowers to be their Youest you. Julie's been featured in Forbes, Mind, Body, Green, the Chopra Center, Health Magazine, New York Times, and Thrive Global. Julie is the author of Get a PhD in You book series, is a multi-time TEDx speaker, host of the USU podcast, and mindfulness teacher on the popular app Insight Timer with over 125,000 downloads. Wow. And Julie's Life Design Coaching Academy is a 4-month virtual live certification program based on an integrative approach. And you have a master's degree in health and wellness coaching, and you're on the faculty at Georgetown University in their coaching program. So welcome to the Recovering Me Summit.
Thank you so much, Nathan. We met, I think, about 5 years ago in a really intensive personal development program. And I just remember feeling like you're a soul brother from another mother, especially given the similar, different stories, but struggles with addiction. And I love what you're doing here. And thank you. And I just want to say hello to everyone. And the first thing I want to say is, it's very weird to be listening to all these things. And I actually didn't realize you're going to show the video. And I want to just say this, that those are all very grateful. And all of that stemmed out of me being forehead to the floor, not wanting to live anymore about 18 years ago when I got myself into recovery. My addiction of choice, I always say I came through the kitchen, is food, is using and abusing food. And I've also struggled with self-debting, not in the financial world as well. And I certainly, addiction, like Gabor said, can be any way of dealing with trauma. For me, I believe a lot of the trauma was, a lot of it was self-inflicted or self-loathing, and feeling not good enough and comparing myself. So, I grew up loving family, loving parents, but with a dad with PTSD who was in Vietnam that was undiagnosed. He was bipolar, ADHD, all of it undiagnosed. And as an empath, and I think many times as those of us who've struggled with addiction, I've done a lot of deep diving into this because I didn't realize this was a thing until I realized it was a thing. And I know you're going to be interviewing Jesse Harless, who is a very dear friend. He and I just remember talking about being an empath, and I started researching and luckily had Dr. Judith Orloff, who's the expert on this, and realized many of us who struggle with addiction are empaths, are highly sensitive, or both. I happen to be both, which means I feel others' energy. This could be a great thing. It can also mean that when I watch something on TV that's really disturbing, I feel it in my body. I take it on. If I hear a conversation that's disturbing, like growing up with a PTSD father, I took that on. It wasn't directed at me, but I took on the stress in my household. And even with loving parents, growing up in a really lovely area outside of Boston, Mass, I took on this energy around me, and I was compared. My trauma was really around comparison and not feeling good enough, and feeling like everyone was smarter or prettier or thinner, or all those isms better. And the way that I dealt with those emotions, I didn't know how to handle them, and I wasn't taught how to handle them. And I've done, probably like everyone here, a lot of introspection, and I really believe our thoughts are sponsored in love or fear. And I went to fear, and fear showed up in not feeling good enough, and self-loathing, self-debting, anything that was people pleasing, not having to be in the present moment with myself. So the way I dealt with that was eating. And I really think I loved what Gabor Mate said and what you put up there, Nathan, about, it's asking the right questions. I believe it's also, so it's asking the right questions. It's having that awareness. The other piece I think that made the biggest difference for me, and I'll get to this in a moment, it's all around our self-love care, our self-care practice, but is getting out of judgment, is learning to have flipping compassion for ourselves. So when I hear all those things about myself, I want to tell you that I am still another, what do they say? Another bozo on the bus, still every day, one day at a time, showing up to my fears and judgments. And today's another day. I've done my meditation and my walking and surrender. And it's not guaranteed. I really see that, this is a daily commitment to living in a lane of self-love and compassion. So I just need to say that because there's a lot of things said on there, like she's done this and this. I'm like, yeah. And there's no difference between me and anybody here, anyone that's struggled with addiction.
Got it. That's awesome. Yeah. And I think, I don't know if Lucius is on here or not, but I did a podcast with a guy named Lucius Irvin, who's going to be sharing later on. And in our podcast, one of the things that he said to me, he said that one of the things that so many addicts have in common is we're like human times 1,000. And meaning we're just really sensitive, and because we weren't taught the strategies in how to really deal with that emotion at a young age, we found something that would reliably deal with, that emotional feeling and help us change our state. So I totally get that. So I want to just say first, like the reason why I had you on first is because in a lot of ways, you've been a gateway for me into this whole recovery process. When I came back to the US about 5 years ago, I was in a difficult place. I was getting ready to get married, and my fiance at that time. So I was not drinking at that time, and I was not sober. And so, meaning I was still dealing all the time with the thoughts and really like that. And I remember I got introduced to you through my mom's doctor, and you introduced me to the personal development course. We ended up coaching together on that course. And I had a huge relapse when I was on that program. And that program, inside of that program, was really when our mutual friend Neil said to me, until you can say that you ate cereal for breakfast and you're an alcoholic, and there have no difference in your physiology, that you're not free. And, so you are really the person. I feel like, we meet people at the right time, so some people might be on this call because they were invited. Maybe they don't know why they're here, and yet they're here to meet the right person or whatever. So I met you at that time, and it really made the biggest difference for me. And even now, when I wanted to put on this summit, you're the first person I came to, and then you introduced me to Jesse and all, a lot of other people. So you've been a huge impact on my life. So I just wanted to say that and say thank you.
I'm so touched. I'm like, I might just cry. I was going to say I'm holding back tears, but I've learned don't hold your tears back. Let them come. So thank you, Nathan. I'm so honored. It's awesome.
Yeah. And for the people that are out there, just be open. If people come into your life for a reason. So I think the first question I had for you was like you said, you came in through the kitchen, right? So what has your battle with food addiction taught you about the need for self-love and the place of self-care in the recovery process?
Okay, I'm going to take a breath. There's a lot to say on this. I'm going to just give me a second so I can. I think what I have seen, there's so much I could say on this. And what I want to say in a very concise way is that there was a lack of remembering for much of my life of who I really am. And I'm speaking, by the way, you can, take what you like, leave the rest, but I'm speaking for me. And I'm also speaking for all of us. Like we forget that this is the way I see it. I completely forgot the divinity that is me. And so all of these behaviors where I put them, others, the people pleasing and the comparing and I'm not good enough and the like self-deprecation, self-loathing. And I mean, and that shows up, especially I'll just say as a female, growing up in the 90s, 80s with like, there's a lot, it's different. I think there's a good shift today, but a lot of issues with body image and weight and, dieting, and food was, it was insane. I mean, I was just insane. That's all I thought about. Until it, you know, there was that moment of either I was literally, you know, hand in a bag of M&Ms, and it was between, I literally thought, do I drive into this tree and end it? It was that bad. Or do I go to a meeting, a support group, for the first time? And so to get to that point with, you know, and I struggled with, I didn't have a lot of outward trauma per se. I mean, my dad being PTSD, there is trauma, but it was so internal, and I just didn't, you wouldn't have known it looking at me. And it was so clear that I'd forgotten that, you know, that there's an aspect of me that no matter what I do is love, and comes from there. It comes from that place. And that program, I mean, getting into, for me, 12 steps is where I started. And what's totally, you know, shifted my life was really getting, you know, it's a spiritual solution. And I realized that I'd been looking through the lenses of something's wrong with me, of shame, of not good enough. I mean, it brings tears even thinking about it, because it's so missing who we are meant to be. And so everything, get a PhD in you, Youest, all of that has come out of changing the lens to, okay, what if I were like exactly whole, complete, perfect right now? What would that make available now? Asking new questions, like Gabor, you know, said, starting to, what if I was worthy right now? What if maybe what I had gotten from this societal, these norms that are really unhealthy / dangerous, that are not true, right? That you have to be a certain way to look, all of that is just BS. But it took really like looking within and developing a new construct, and realizing, you know, that what I had lost was a sense of self-connection, self-compassion, self-love. And so I had to rebuild that. And it was massive excavating work, but it's been worth it. And it's really, to me, it comes down to, you're either in fear, and fear shows up in a lot of ways, in fear, or I'm in love. And it's a choice, and it's a choice by the moment. And love, I asked the question for me today is, what would love have me do here? And that really is the new question. That's the question that guides me. What is in the highest good for me, for my body, for my well-being, and those I'm here to serve? What is the most loving thing I can do now? When I stay in that frame, and that place of, to me, that's divine connection. I don't hurt my body. I don't want to, take in foods that are going to hurt me. And when I do, because I'm not perfect, and I've had, I've had relapses, I've had slips, whatever you want to call them, or it's shown up in other ways. For me, just as important is learning to have compassion and love myself, and not condemn or go into shame or fear. So that, for me, it's gotten very simple. If I'm in judgment, I'm in fear. If I'm in shame, I'm in fear. And I don't choose to live in fear today. And I do every day surrender to help other than myself, something greater than me. And that could be you, that could be divine love, quantum physics. I don't know. It's just, I know that it's love or fear. And that took a while to see that I was looking through the glasses of something's wrong versus something's right.
Mm. Powerful. And you have you have the book, The PhD in You, and then the podcast that you have now is called the Youest podcast, right? So obviously, I think you ask this to everybody that comes on, but what does the Youest mean to you?
Yeah, I know it gets weird with I was terrible with grammar, and I'm like, yeah, it's really hard to say that. Me is me, Youest you, we is we, whatever it is. I mean, the way I see this, truly what it means to me is tapping into your higher self. It's tapping into that infinite part of you. I mean, I believe each of us are, infinite divine expressions that are literally individuated expressions of the divine. I see myself, I'll just go there. I mean, I really feel each of us has chosen to be here for different reasons. I don't know all of, your reasons. I'd love to know people, everyone's reasons here. It's why I do what I do. But I know that I ask daily, what is it? Who am I? Why did I choose this lifetime? And how can I shine my light and shine in a way that's going to make the biggest impact? That's sort of the realm of me. And I would imagine if you're here, there's probably a part of you that's like, I have a light and I want to shine it. And either you are, or you sort of are, or it scares you, or it doesn't, or I'm in the place of, look, this world definitely needs all of our light now more than ever. And what happens is when you start to get, when the addictive behaviors, pause and start to become dormant, that's when obviously more emotions come up, but also when I found I've been able to step forth into that, my higher self, my meest me. And I think it's an ongoing evolution. I don't think you ever land there. So it's a continuous exploration and journey. But I think that question of is, what is the highest expression of me that, when you put your hand on your heart and you ask yourself that, when you ask your inner guidance, when you ask, what is the most loving way that I can express to me, that's my meest me. And anytime I'm not that, it's not to condemn yourself. It's just to notice it, be curious and say, you know what? I've gotten to the point, Nathan and everyone, where I'm like, there's only a certain period of time I have here. Hopefully I've got a long time. We're hoping hundreds plus, but I want to use as many moments as possible to be in that space of service and love and compassion and light. Like that's what it means to me. But truthfully, we all have, like, just every snowflake is unique. We each have our unique signature divine expression. And I would say, you're there when you feel it in your heart. You might feel it in your gut. You feel it in your whole being. We know this intuitively. We know who we are. We do know that. I think there's a lot of conditioning. There's a lot of other parts to the way that we're brought up in our society that can tamper that. But I do think it's a return. The call to action to me is a return home to each of us going to our, your Youest you, your higher self. And the beautiful thing is, it doesn't matter how much time you've done in the lane of like not listening. I have so many stories of this. It's not funny. The moment you decide and say, yep, I am choosing right now, just in this moment, to be present, to be with this moment, it can shift in a minute, in a moment, in a breath.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. I know I had a moment like that in a coffee shop in Indonesia. I literally just had one of those, like, what do they call it? Come to Jesus moment, where it's like I had been in and out of recovery for so long, like 5-6 years, just never found the right thing. And I think it was all just kind of preparation. And then I just had one moment where someone sent me a text message, and for some reason it just like it resonated the right way. And I just started crying hysterically in the middle of this coffee shop, like surrounded by people. And that was like a moment where things came together. And for whatever reason, I just wasn't ready before that moment, but it happened. So I know, and you mentioned a couple of times about sort of the relapse and having those moments, right, where you don't choose love. So what are some things for someone that's like in early stage recovery? What would you tell them are made the biggest difference for you to make your sobriety stick? Because I know for all of us, we can stop for a while, but getting sober is different than staying sober.
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest things, and this is like for those of us who like have your to-do list and all these things to do, and if you're, especially like, I know for me, I had a job, now I have a business, but like there's a lot of things you feel like, I know I used to feel like, oh, these are important. And I would say one of the biggest gifts was really getting that my self-care is my number one job. Now that's going to come up when you start to have other things that need your attention. I have kids, definitely two, sometimes 3 kids around. That's quite a lot. It doesn't matter. So I would say really truly getting you are worthy of making yourself, your love and care and compassion for yourself, the most important thing. It is my number one most important job. I don't always remember that. So I have words all around me. Maybe I'll show you guys later. All around me. I'm actually making another paper to put up so I can remind myself that it's my number one job. I learned early on, you don't do life alone. So even if whether 12 steps or, support speaks to you, find people that can be mentors, that can be supporters, that you can reach out to. I don't go a day alone. Even if it's a voice text, like, hey, that's part of my reaching out, not staying in my own little cave by myself. Although I love the cave, I definitely reaching out. But, and so in the self-love, the number one thing is self-care is number one. And so, with that for me, meditation. And I'll just a shout out to George, who I think is here. Where's George? Or maybe
he's here
for a second. Oh, there's George. He has a new, I didn't recognize the aloha. George, who is also a brother from another mother who worked with me. I had done a lot of meditating, and actually I worked with him on getting a mantra and meditating, which I've been loving. George, thank you. Meditation, which, by the way, Insight Timer was what changed my life 9 years ago. I was not able to meditate for very long, so it started there. George actually came into the picture and helped me to have my meditations up there. Now I love Insight Timer, but meditation of any kind. For me, it's meditating in silence with a mantra. That's been really, really powerful. I don't care where you start. I started at 30 seconds. Today, it's 2 times a day, 20 minutes. It's non-negotiable for me. It's just non-negotiable. I also do, and I'll share this with everyone, you do not have to be Reiki trained. I did the Reiki 1 training. There are 8 hand positions, and I start every morning giving Reiki to myself. If you don't know Reiki, all you need to know is this one. Put your hand on your heart. Wake up, hand on my heart. I start with love for myself. This is not my conditioning. This is what I've conditioned myself to do, because I realize I can't do life if I'm not infusing myself. So it's meditation, Reiki, hand to heart, nature, walking, doesn't matter. I mean, ideally 30, 45 minutes, but just getting outside, moving if I can. I also do child's pose and a surrender. I throw it all out there to something greater than me. Every day it's a different word. Some of you know, different word every day. I don't think it matters. Whatever you call it, higher power, God, goddess, Jesus, Buddha, creator, higher self, Yoda. I love Baby Yoda. I'm watching The Mandalorian with my son, and I'm obsessed with him. So it might be Baby Yoda, like seriously, cutest thing ever. Whatever it is, but it's an offering of myself. Those are some of the basics. And then of course, how am I nourishing myself? Because my addiction is food, and you cannot go unless you're fasting, and that's part of, a recovery. That's a different thing. If you're eating food, usually most of us need to eat a couple times a day. I've gotten very clear what works for me. And I had to look at, because I have an autoimmune condition that I'm clear has to do with eating sugar, other factors in the environment, but also not expressing my voice. My thyroid stopped working, and I have decided the loving thing for me today is to follow an autoimmune protocol. So that's loving for me. And the key is, when I forget or don't do one of those things, and I share this for all of you, the instinct is to be like, shit, I suck. I've trained myself to put my hand on my heart and just say, I love you. It's okay. I forgot to meditate. I ate something I shouldn't have. So that's my self-care. And if I miss it, or I forget, or I choose to eat something that's not that, I have learned, I call someone, I text someone, and I just forgive myself on the spot. I don't need to give a reason. I just love myself through it. And that, let me tell you, my friends, that is beyond, that's not even a 180. That is a 360 from where I used to be. That's nothing of where I was before. So.
Awesome. All right. And I guess lastly, so part of your giveaway. So if people do donate, they get a copy of the PhD in You book. So can you just share a little bit about what that is? And then also, if people, so I got a question about, do you work with people that have eating disorders? And if you do, what are some recommended resources? So can you just share a little bit about your book, and then how people can work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And thank you everyone for being here. And just want to say, I think it's really important, no matter where we're coming from, just getting that. I actually believe the gift of addiction is we get to connect at a deeper level, and the friends, the community. I can honestly say today I'm grateful. I did not feel that way 18 years ago. Yeah. Did not. And took a while. So get a PhD in You. I really believe intuition, our inner wisdom, is the language of our soul. And I chose to start listening to it throughout my experience in 12 steps, and then leaving my job to start my own business about 6.5 years ago. And right away I heard, you need to write a book. And I thought, that's crazy. I'm not a good writer. And I heard it for a year. And finally what I kept hearing was, write what you wish you had had 18 years ago. Write to the younger you. Write to somebody who is struggling with their emotions, with self-love, with discovery of their brilliance, of their unique gifts. Write to that person. And so what I did was I literally hand wrote my first book. I wrote it out like journal style, and it kept coming back to me. I'll just share with you, I also have been part of a 12-step group that's for families of recovering. My sister's a recovering alcoholic very openly. And I used to go to those meetings, and I would think, oh my God, I feel like I just got my PhD in myself. Like now, between all of these programs, like, wow, I wish I could help people feel, because we get masters and PhD in everything but ourselves. And I thought, you know something? Everybody on this planet needs to do that kind of study and love focused attention on themselves. And so that name actually came first. It was like, oh yeah, I used to say that. Yep, it's getting a PhD in you, which is the play on, getting a degree. You don't really people have asked me, you don't really get a degree, although I do have a degree in there that's kind of cute. But I wrote it from a place of like asking new questions, looking at the stories, looking at fear, looking at your addiction, looking at where your strengths are, where have you thrived, who are you really, who is your Youest you, what did you love to do when you were little? And it was very inspired by Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way. That was a game changer for me for many reasons. And so it has that workbook feel. It has my story in it. And I hand wrote it. I wrote it. Now it's not handwritten, obviously, but I wrote it so that people can, for the highly sensitive, empathic, a lot of big-hearted, beautiful individuals, I think have really gotten a lot from it, because it gets you to see who you really are from the most beautiful lens. That, to me, if I can help as many individuals, help as many of you to really get your divinity and your gifts and strengths and talents and the genius that you are, and then to express that, I really think that's how we start to heal ourselves and how we heal what's going on in our planet. So that's the book. I think you have the link to it, or we'll have the link.
Yeah, it's in the chat box. There's instructions for how to donate, and then also your website is there as well.
Yeah, I work in terms of, Jill, your question. I've had many clients with eating disorders or addiction with food. I'm very grateful. I've done quite a bit of my own work on healing trauma and shadow work. I've actually studied with Teal Swan, for those of you who know her, and have done my own deep work. So when I do coaching, it's actually not just from the coaching model, but it's also, I do a lot of healing and integration. I'm an intuitive as well. So I do a lot of that kind of healing of past traumas. And oftentimes with those coming in with eating issues, there's trauma often to the body, to, around food and nourishment and learning to be worthiness. So I've definitely worked with quite a few. In terms of resources, it's a great question. I'm a huge believer in the 12 steps. I think it's a great place to go, but there's if others know resources, I found mindfulness communities, Mind Body Green. I'm trying to think of others that Daily Om. There's some great like free resources out there. The Chopra Center is fantastic. I love Janine Roth, who talks a lot about food and God and your body. And Bright Lines by Sarah, I'm forgetting her name, is a great one. And you guys are sweet. Thank you, Jordan and Jesse. Trying to think. I'll think of others, but I do recommend Janine Roth has some great work, as well as there's one author and I'm forgetting, but I would, I would just say, there's more. Oh, I know. I actually do have a course on this. Hello, on Insight Timer. That is a resource.
The Hungry for More, right?
I have a course. I have a 10-day audio that actually, I think it has about 6,000 students that have really gotten a lot from it. So you know what? I do have a resource. It's called Hungry for More. I forgot that I created that. It's like $20 on Insight Timer. And I have one on my site that's a little more interactive, but that really walks you through what I call the 6 H's of hunger. Really, what we're hungry for is typically not the food item. I'll just say that, usually for something way deeper. And I kind of walk you through that. So I'm so glad I remembered. I forgot that I have a resource